saying wow countdown. All right, yeah, let's go live. All right, looks like we're live now. Hi there, this is Matt Heffernan. Welcome back to my channel. This is a special Slivey Vlogs episode, which I'm recording live on a live stream. And if you're actually watching live right now, what you're going to see is something a bit different. This live stream won't be staying up on my main channel for a while. It will be moving to my new channel, Slivey Games Live, where I have been putting some of the live streams. I've got 3 live streams so far that I've done, and this will be the 4th, but this is not just going to exist as a live stream. We'll have the live stream staying up forever on the new channel, Slivey Games Live, which if you go to my channel, you can subscribe to that. That is right under the channels tab on the page, and you'll be able to get just if you're not able to be up on the internet at the time where I'm putting these videos out, that you'll be able to see them all happening. All right, I am streaming, right? Yep. Looks like I lost everybody. So what we're going to see here is me playing this game from my friend Alan Turvey, who has created a homebrew version of Asteroids. Of course, the original Tato game. It's kind of interesting that both of us are not only creating Z80 tutorial series on YouTube, his using the Usborne books, but my series, of course, is entirely original, my approach to doing things. So my only guide is my previous series for the Commander X16. And but on top of both doing those kind of series, we are also both remaking classic Tato games for the ZX Spectrum. Oh, Bunker Boys had an ad. Now he's back on. All right. Yeah, so you know that commerce doesn't die. So as I was saying, that Alan and I, in addition to doing our tutorial series for the Z80, specifically targeted towards the ZX Spectrum, we are also creating our own ZX Spectrum games that are both based on classic Tato games. My game is based on Puzzle Bobble, also known as Bust a Move, and that game's called Pop. And probably my next vlog after this one will be based on that. And his game is, of course, Asteroids. Wait, now I'm confusing. Wait, Asteroids wasn't Tato. Asteroids was, wasn't Asteroids Atari? I think Asteroids was originally Atari. And I get it confused with Space Invaders. But yeah, Space Invaders was definitely Tato. So he's got this game that he's been working on for a while. He's redoing all of the classic vector graphics. If you go to his channel, which is named Happy Coding, or Happy Coding ZX, or Happy Coding ZX, if you swing that way. And his channel, Happy Coding, has not just his tutorials, but a bunch of the updates on this game. And he challenged me to try to see if I could get a high score. So he's got his patrons on Patreon. I've got, of course, my patrons on Patreon, but this is not a Patreon exclusive video to get the live. I just put it out in the public, but I didn't announce it to anybody. And so we'll see who shows up. We'll see if anybody wants to see me play this game. And so I'm going to see how far I can get. And basically, I'm going to edit down this live vlog into a more edited vlog with probably whatever my best version is, or if anything interesting happens during the live stream, that'll get edited into the final vlog, and that'll be going up live on Monday. But of course, if you do want to see this full vlog, you'll be able to see it on my new channel, Slivey Games Live, which is linked into my my main channel right here. And you click on the channels tab, and you can subscribe to that, and you can see this live stream in its entirety replayed back. So we not play a Space Invaders clone because the timing was not correct. Wow, well that's That's interesting. I mean, definitely games like this, timing is very important. I could see that, but each game is its own thing, and so this isn't like exactly perfect to the original Asteroids. This is definitely its own game and has been made to work as well as possible on the ZX Spectrum. Just like my game is not going to be perfectly like Puzzle Bobble, it'll be its own thing for the ZX Spectrum. So let's get into it. I've already redefined my keys, and we're going to see. You can see here on the attract mode, it actually has an attract mode, that 3500 is the basic score that I have to pass just to get into the high score on the game itself while it's in memory. So we'll see. We'll see if I can do that, and we'll see how I do compared against all of his patrons and other live YouTubers and Twitchers and whoever else is going to do this. So let's get to it. All right. So as you can see, straight off the bat, very similar, very basic version of Asteroids. It's got all the typical elements that you're going to see. It starts out with 2 big asteroids in the first level. So I've already gotten through that. Oh, I didn't get out of the way there. Now, I did not play a ton of the original Asteroids in the arcade, but at home, I had a Vectrex. And if you know anything about the Vectrex, you know that there's a version of Asteroids that was built into it. If you did not put a cartridge in, you were playing the Vectrex version of Asteroids. Can't quite remember what that was called now. Because again, didn't have to actually put in a any cartridge for it. It was just automatically playing. So I played that quite a bit, even though I had quite a few cartridges for the Vectrex. That was also a very solid version of... didn't quite make 3500 there on that first try. Very solid version of Asteroids, and of course with the Vectrex had a real vector monitor. Here Alan is making a... trying to make a version for the Spectrum, where of course it is going to be for a PAL-based TV, good old raster display. It is not going to be vector display compatible. So that would be kind of interesting. And of course there were vector games. I can't remember any specific ones offhand that used a vector display and a Z80, but I'm sure there were some. It was so very common in that sector. A lot of arcade cabinets had a Z80 in them, and you had that period in the mid to late 70s and into the early 80s, where vector displays were pretty popular, because you really had a lot of limitations with the raster display. It required a lot of CPU horsepower to do sophisticated graphics, especially graphics that would scale or give you any sort of like 3D effect. And of course you'd have all the little jackies like you can see on this. It doesn't look as nice on Asteroids, doesn't look as nice on a raster display as on a vector display. Hey, look at that. All right, so 4660, that's the best I could do. And it looks like I still got to use the game controls to, I can't just type in my initials. So let's get the old initials in there. Do you have any experience with vector graphics? Not specifically for like vector display graphics. I have done a little bit of programming in vector graphics, but for the most part, any of like the game programming I've done has been straight up raster graphics, little tiles, sprites, that sort of thing. And I mean, obviously, you know, here with the spectrum, let me show here, enter. We can show different colors on here, which is kind of cool. If I get like cyan, that gets a little more like the original there. But yeah, so I haven't tried doing vector graphics for the spectrum yet. Haven't been doing a whole lot with it yet, other than my game, which is definitely a very, you know, tile sprite type game. Trying to do that with the Spectrum's graphic capabilities, which of course are extremely simple, but it does lend itself well enough to be able to draw simple shapes and be able to have enough buffering so that here you can see he's able to do these vector graphics. It doesn't look like it's going quite at 50 frames a second. So that he is able to do nice flicker-free vector drawing. He can have this text up here. He's able to draw these shapes, and it ends up looking pretty good. So I think he may be cheating it a bit though with this one, since there's nothing scaling in it. It's not like the original Star Wars vector game where you had a lot of scaling vector graphics, and that's definitely not the case here. So I think this is more just of a cheat of bitmap. But if you actually go to his channel, he does. All right. Oh, looks like all right. Looks like I might have lost the stream there for a bit, but hopefully the recording works. Yeah, I actually, the very first programming I ever did was on Logo, on an Apple II, actually, not a Commodore, because that's what my school had. My elementary school had an Apple II, a bunch of Apple IIs, and we had enough floppies to go around that each of those computers could be running the Logo interpreter. And that was my very first ever introduction to programming at the tender age of 8 years old, before I even had any sort of computer at home. Oh, well, looks like I did a little better that time. Got up to 5690. So I'm just going to play this a few times until I get up to... Oh, there we go. Oh, how nice. My initials were preloaded in there. So, all right. Looks like I'm moving up. Oh, it pushed out my older score. Interesting. So 5690 is where I'm at. We'll see if I can hit 10,000. Your school at C64 is a lot of Logo, and where in the world is Carmen San Diego? Yeah, so that's definitely at least a little after my elementary school time. Carmen San Diego. I think I was in high school by the time that game came out. But we did have Oregon Trail, actually not on those Apple IIs. We had it on the on some TRS-80 Model 3s. We played Oregon Trail, where I learned how to die of dysentery. So that was some good times right there. All right. So here, let's try it again. Let's see if I can get closer to that 10,000. So I'll probably go till about 2:30 or so, or if I hit 10,000, I'm going to try to see if I can hit 10,000 before 2:30, and we'll see where we end up. All right, come on. Oh, I'm starting to get a little lag on there. That's all right. So, if you've seen some of my tutorial videos and other demo videos, I was using Zasarix for emulation, and I've switched back to Fuse because I've discovered that the well, Zasarix, yeah, it's kind of janky to use, but I was before, when I was having trouble with Fuse, I was using the SDL version of it, and turns out the GTK version works a lot better. I was thinking that the SDL version would be a little more little more realistic, maybe a little higher quality, better fidelity, but this seems to do pretty well. And and definitely the STL version was a mess. I am not doing well this go around. Oh. So you work nights, you not sleep well? Probably more the latter. So I definitely push off a lot of this YouTube stuff to the late night when my wife and kids are snugly in bed, and then I do some of these adventures. So generally, I need to have some quiet time to record these things. So yeah, it's going to be a little more on the later end. All right, that was not a good one. Let's try to do this for real. But yeah, sometimes you'll see on my videos that you can see the time code on the status bar from when I'm doing a screen capture, and you'll notice very early times, if you want to call it that, because I keep the 24-hour clock on there, and yeah, usually if I'm recording something, it's usually going to be between midnight and 2 a.m. and that's when I get most of my recording done. Sometimes I can edit and do other pre-production work, stuff that I can do with a little more audio distraction, where I don't need to have quiet to do, and that's what but when it comes time to recording, yeah, usually I gotta do it pretty late at night. Come on, let's get that UFO. There we go. Well, Bunker Boy, I'm glad you're here for one of my live streams. I know that, like, a lot of my subscribers, even my patrons, are not able to make these, because I do it at a weird hour. I know I usually do it too late for America and too early for Europe, and that's the way it ends up. Oh, hey, Jimmy's here, though. It's hard to get that quiet and recorded. Yes, there we go. So thanks, Jimmy, for logging in. Jimmy's one of my patrons, so thanks for making it. I know this is probably first thing in the morning for Saturday for you. Stinker asks, what systems game's on? This is on the ZX Spectrum. So for a bit of a recap, Alan Turvey, a online friend of mine, who is also doing another Z80 tutorial series on YouTube. He is, like me, not just doing tutorial videos, but is also a homebrew developer. And his primary focus all along has been the ZX Spectrum. He's a British guy, and he grew up with the Spectrum, so he's actually made a few games for it. And so this is his attempt at bringing Asteroids to the Spectrum to try to recapture the look of the original vector graphics of Asteroids. And so he put out a challenge for different YouTubers, different streamers and creators, in addition to his own patrons, to actually see how high of a score they could get. Looks like 5690 is as good as I'm doing right now. 7:50 a.m. In Denmark, I guess. All right, so yeah, it's not too bad. I know in England it's an hour earlier, and that's where it seems, since I started doing this content for the Spectrum, understandably, my country demographics have shifted quite a bit, so that especially when my Spectrum videos come out, that at least for that day, I get more views from the UK than from the US. But then it sort of reverts back to that mean. But then I get a lot of views from all over Europe. Oddly enough, I don't see a lot of views in the YouTube Studio Analytics showing a lot of views from Russia, but I know I get a lot of Russian viewers because they show up in the comments. I don't know if maybe Russians are more likely to show up in comments rather than having their location show up in any demographic data. I'm not sure what that is. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Nearly avoided that. Because I know that the Spectrum had many clones that were made behind the Iron Curtain. So in a lot of former communist countries, Soviet republics, and not just Russia, but, you know, all the states that were former Soviet republics and in Eastern Europe all had different versions of the Spectrum because they couldn't import actual Sinclair machines. That's still not quite as good, but they had sort of their own locally made versions that were more or less compatible with the Spectrum. And so the actual market for the games, when the Iron Curtain fell, they started getting not just a lot of games imported into these countries, but they were able to sort of keep it going because, you know, after communism fell, the industry was still trying to keep up. So you had a lot of newer games in the 90s actually coming out for the Spectrum specifically for these Eastern European markets. Bunker Boys, your Z80 kind of makes me want to do a Ben Eater style breadboard computer with Z80. You know, that's a good idea. If you subscribe to Ben Heck's channel, Ben Heck Hacks, he's actually made some very simple Z80 computers, even simpler than the Spectrum. And so yeah, there's a lot of different really simple Z80 based computers out there that you can just see how they're built right on YouTube. You can download. There's open source PCB images that you could go ahead and have manufactured yourself, or you can buy the PCBs, or go to PCBWay and get your own PCB printed out for him. Stinker says, speaking of 8-bit micros, tend to think Z80 is the Speccy is worse than the 6510. Yeah, so there's pluses and minuses. A 3.5 megahertz Z80 compared to a just over 1 megahertz 6510. You're really talking about the same sort of horsepower because the Z80 is a lot more cycle hungry than the 6502 family. So to do the basic operations, it's generally going to take about the same amount of time, and so it really depends on what your application is, what it's going to do. And you could have certain applications that are going to perform better on the Z80, and certain applications are going to perform better on a 6502 or 6510. Oh, Jimmy's got a whole stash of Z80s. Nice. Well, I don't quite have a stash. I've got a couple of things that have Z80s. I have more things that emulate Z80. I did a live stream. If you go to my new channel, Slithy Games Live, you'll see the stream I did of my Pac-Man plug-and-play system where it emulates a bunch of actually the original Namco Z80 based arcade cabinets, and it's pretty cool. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't have an actual Z80. It appears to be some sort of emulation. Ow, that wasn't nice. Because I was able to open it up, and it had a couple of epoxy blobs, and then a 16-bit DRAM chip that was, what did it have? It had ouch. I think it was like 16 megabytes. So like, and the way the DRAM worked is that you got 16 bits at a time from it, and so I don't believe that is going to be like an actual Z80 type bus that's accessing that RAM chip. That is definitely going to be like an ARM type chip or something, and then it's doing some Z80 emulation. Ooh, let's get that guy. But I have some TI calculators, that do have, or at least Z80 compatible chips in them. I found LDR and other repeat opcodes interesting. Yeah. So LDIR and LDDR, very interesting. Those are the kind of opcodes that you didn't really see in microprocessors until much later. The Z80 was really a forerunner for that. Of course, you had these mainframe instruction set architectures that had all sorts of large amounts of functionality built into single instructions, but the micros like the 8080 and the 6800, 6502 didn't have instructions like that. They were a lot more like what we would think of as sort of a RISC instruction set architecture, but without some of the advances that came with RISC, with the pipelining and so on, that you were able to actually just have a very small instruction set architecture because you had to fit it on a small piece of silicon. That's what you got. So people still will insist on calling the 6502 a RISC processor. And it's like, well, no, it's not. The instruction set's not reduced. It's just small, right? Sometimes things are just small. They're not reduced. Reduced means that you had a capacity for more and you made the conscious decision to make it smaller in order for some sort of gain in efficiency. And that is not the case with the 6502. It's just a little rinky-dink thing. There's not that many transistors on it. So it really just was about getting how simple could a microprocessor be and still be Turing complete. And then at the end of the day, you get the 6502. Now, of course, the Z80 took a very different approach from the 6502. That was more like, all right, well, I've got this small piece of silicon. I need to make an affordable CPU for making doing low-cost systems. Generally, of course, originally it was meant to be for embedded systems like these arcade cabinets and a lot of medical devices that still use Z80s to this day. And so then it was like, well, how do we make a processor that is not just backwards compatible with the 8080, but also introduces all these other things to make programming a lot better. Is this my highest score so far? Yeah, that's the best I've done so far, 6,040. And yeah, so that's what you had with the Z80, is something that it wasn't RISC. It wasn't reduced. In fact, it's augmented. Is how sophisticated of an instruction set architecture can we get in a small piece of silicon, in a cheap microprocessor, and put in embedded systems, and then be able to build cheap, single board computers, or eventually home computers like the ZX Spectrum. You didn't have to add a whole lot of extra hardware to it to make it work. So, Stinker says he wants to toy around with an FPGA at some point. Yeah, fantasy hardware and fantasy ISAs and Notepad in your spare time. There you go. Yeah, that kind of takes me back to college, where we sort of had to develop a sort of a made-up instruction set architecture, and then implement that in microcode in this sort of fake emulated CPU. Not actually doing an FPGA, but you certainly could. And of course, a lot of systems are, and not just like the MiSTer, but all sorts of systems are implementing FPGA, implementing CPU cores within an FPGA, and you can license it. There's open source cores. There's a lot going on, and you'll be able to see that as a starting point. But yeah, to actually code one from scratch in FPGA, like with a VHDL, Verilog, whatever, That'd be a pretty cool project. So Bunker Boys has a low-end project board somewhere in a parts box. Yeah, that'd be pretty neat. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like how simple of a processor can you make an even simpler Turing complete processor than the 6502, or like say the 6507 that runs the Atari 2600. Maybe something as simple as like the Intel 4004, where it's just real dead simple. There's just not a whole lot going on. It's just barely enough to make a calculator. All right, let's see. Hello, dear. Well, thank you for the familiarity there, Shaki Shaqueen. So yes, thanks for coming on to my stream. We're gonna see here. We're gonna see if I can maybe crack 7,000. Seems I can usually get through this first level unscathed, which is helpful. But yeah, you can see it like really jumps up in difficulty here with the second level, where we get oh, just tried to dodge that, couldn't get out in time. In the second level, it jumps up to the four big asteroids. Oof. Oh, let's get that. No! Jimmy has an ongoing project for developing a CPU from discrete gates. So, but how do it? Oh, wow. And the Ben Eater videos. So, yeah, wow, discrete logic, like all TTL logic chips. I mean, it's been done. There's that, what's it called? 8-Bit Guy actually featured it on his channel. It was all TTL logic. Was it the Gigatron, I think it was called? That looked like an interesting project. And yeah, you could totally do that. Stinker says there's someone with experience in designing 16-bit tier graphics hardware, knockoff C64 software, and even managed to make a whole system chip that people shouldn't be knowing about, but we do. Yeah. All right. Let's let's see if we can get up a little higher. Oof, that was close. Ooh. Oh, come on. I think one thing that's a little frustrating with this is, ouch, that first of all, the new lives aren't quick to come, and there's like a big limitation in the angles. So you can see here, like going back and forth, trying to get a trying to adjust the angle of shooting. It's tough. There's like, it's like a 20-degree. It's like a 20-degree differential. Like I hit the button, and it moves by like 20 degrees. Or, you know, that my little, you know, I can move this guy, my little ship, and then the actual angle of my artillery doesn't quite match. You can see it looks like it's a little bit off from where I'd expect it. So I could turn to a spot and it's not quite coming out where I'd want it to. So yeah, I mean, definitely this is a work in progress. So a lot of those kind of things Alan still needs to be working on. But right now, I mean, it's pretty, I mean, it hasn't been like really playable for very long. This is it, like you just a couple weeks ago you couldn't die in this game. Right? You could just start shooting and you could shoot everything, but nothing would kill you. And now things definitely kill you. It's really a playable game. Of course, it was a lot easier when nothing could kill you. But now... okay. Come on. And really, and not much longer ago than that... Oh, there we go. I almost got to 10,000. And not much longer ago than that, it was... You couldn't even destroy the asteroids. You just had all the graphics moving around, and you could shoot, but it wouldn't actually destroy anything. Boys, trying to get the 24-bit address bus to work with the 65, yeah, the CA16. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, if you can get that address bus to work, I know that's the difficulty with that is that you have that multiplexing you got to do, where you have address lines doing double duty as data lines. So yeah, I think, as I recall, you do have the lower 16 bits of the address or the upper 16 bits of the address, whichever it is, and then the other 8 bits of the address bus have to share pins with the data bus, with the external data bus, and that's definitely something that requires extra logic to deal with. So yeah, definitely curious to see that, to see how that works. I know there's not a lot of examples out there, but you have 2 pretty good ones. And the Apple II GS uses the bog standard 65816, and then of course you have the Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, with the Ricoh modification of it with DMA controllers and all that. Though I think that has an entirely different pinout, and obviously with the DMA there's a whole lot of different wiring, different timings and things involved in that. But you can see how Apple did it with the 2GS, and that was a pretty nice system. We had those in high school, actually. The Macs were a little too expensive to give to all of us punk kids. Oh, that's not a good way to start. So we had the math department's, well, math/art department's lab stocked with 2GSs. So we could do not just we did computer graphics classes on that, did like basic, like how to use a word processor, spreadsheet database. Of course, all using AppleWorks. This was before you had Microsoft Office. And ooh. And so yeah, doing all that on 2GS, and there was even a programming class using Pascal, also on the 2GS. But I never took that class. I didn't actually take any real programming classes until college. I was just self-taught, just doing basic at home. I had friends that did the Pascal class, but by all accounts, it was a pretty lame class. So I didn't bother. It's like, well, if I wanted to learn Pascal, I could just go learn it on my own. And I sort of did. And we did, in college, we had to do Modula 2, which is sort of a slightly more advanced version of Pascal. Yeah, so Snicker says, the 24-bit addressing scheme, that's why the Commander X16 is now just using the 6.5 CO2. It's just simpler to deal with, and then they were able to basically take the original VIC-20 PCB and just modify that a little bit to get all this extra functionality put in. You took BASIC in high school. Interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, no, I don't recall any level of my education having BASIC be something that you could take as a class. I do remember in middle school on those TRS-80 Model 3s that we did Oregon Trail on, that they had, of course, BASIC on there, and so we did a little bit of time on that BASIC, but that was only like a couple times. Didn't really learn how to program. It was like, there was that simple racing game that you saw on like every version of BASIC. Yeah, this game's a complete wash. I'm just kind of winging it at this point. And so like they said, oh, here, now you can do list, and you can see the basic code, but not really teaching us how to program. Not like in the earlier class I had where we really did stuff with logo. But even with the logo, it was still mainly drawing. Did end up using logo again years later, my senior year of high school, with Apple IIe's, the very end of the life cycle of the 2E, using the Lego robotics kits that had the special interface board in the 2E, and this like breakout that you could control the different motors and things, and basically we were just expected to learn how to use this logo-based interface with it. And of course I had logo experience, and some of my other classmates had that logo experience from like 9 years earlier, and we were able to bring that back. In college you did Visual Basic, C++, and COBOL. Wow, that's quite the gamut. Yeah, so C++ was definitely too much of a new thing for us to have had available in high school. Visual Basic was still in its very early stages. You didn't really have the Windows version of Visual Basic until really right before I graduated from high school. Which 65816 addressing modes wrap on bank boundaries and which ones don't? Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I don't know if you're asking somebody else in the chat. I don't know a lot of those special addressing modes for the 816. But yeah, that's an interesting question, and it's something that I don't think it comes up. I haven't seen it come up in like Super Nintendo. Of course, I only ever did that Hello World, just enough to show the internet how to do Hello World. Someday I'd like to actually make a Super Nintendo game. I think that would be fun. Just what to do, you know? Like in my last live stream, played Super Mario World. Why bother making a Super Nintendo game when something as awesome as Super Mario World already exists? Man, that was rough. Alright, I gotta get out of here. Oh, too late. Yeah, mastering the thrust controls on this is sort of evading me. I know when I played this on my old Vectrex, I didn't use the thrust a whole lot. Didn't really like the mechanics of the thrust on that. I always felt more out of control than in control. It was definitely a lot soupier, I would say, than in the original Asteroids. I think the jury's out with this version, whether this works at all better. I think this might be my last attempt. We'll see. unless this really goes south quick, like the last couple of games. Would really like to beat 10,000. Oh man, I'm starting to lag now. I don't know if that's just my emulator crapping out, or if the game itself gets slow when there's too many asteroids on the screen. I think it might be the game. Oh, you see. Yeah, and that takeoff's really slow, too. I seem to remember the original Asteroids having a much faster takeoff. And like the hyperspace, I never really used the hyperspace much either, playing Asteroids. Oh, that was pathetic. I gotta at least play one more time. All right, one more time. Once more into the breach. Oh, come on. At least when, you know, when the asteroids kamikazes you, it has the decency to self-destruct. Ugh, see, yeah. I try to evade, and I just can't evade fast enough. And I see, like, oh. Alright. I'm not leaving it at that either. See, like here, I'll just do like, yeah, see the hyperspace, it seems like I just end up in a random spot. And then, yeah, it doesn't seem to help me at all to do hyperspace. Ugh. Oh, this one's even worse. Alright, let's see. I'm gonna... There we go. We're just gonna kill myself on that. The 65816 is something I call Weirdo Frankenstein. Yeah, that's definitely kind of how it happened with MOS, or actually WDC rather. It wasn't MOS that made it. Where WDC is like, hey, you know, we should really make like a 16-bit processor. What should we do? Should we just copy the 68,000, where we kind of like, in the 6502, we basically copy the 6800. And they said, nah, let's make something like weirdly backward compatible, because we've got like these billions of systems running the 6502. Let's make something backwards compatible. And they did it. It wasn't a huge success, but you know, it was a big enough success that they still make them. Right? It had a they got Apple to make a really nice computer in the 2GS. Oh, come on. But of course, Apple didn't really stick behind the 2GS. I mean, 2GS was a really nice system that you know, Apple's like, oh, the Mac is where it's at. And the 2GS was selling really well, but they didn't want to back that product. It's kind of what drove Woz out of the company, was the fact that they didn't really see the 2GS as something that could have, like, really jump-started Apple's visibility in the home market, especially when it came to gaming. 2GS was really nice for gaming. And, you know, you could actually play those games that were made for all the 16-bit systems. And it was better than what most folks had for a PC compatible. Until, like, you know, the VGA games started coming out. But it certainly could have evolved to that. I really believe they could have done a much better job marketing and supporting that system and letting it evolve into sort of a low-cost 16-bit system. And, you know, sort of, eventually merging that in the Mac. I mean, the Mac, I mean, to this day, it never really became something that people gamed with. Hey, oh, look at that. All right, I think I'm going to end on this high note. All right, that's as good as I can get. 13,770. That's as good as I'm going to be able to play Asteroids RX, at least tonight. So for you folks that are here, I thank you for dropping by. This video is it's not going to stay up on my main channel. It's going to move to my new channel in its unedited form, which is Slivey Games Live. You go to my channel, you can click on the Channels tab, and you'll see it right there. And what you will see coming Monday, and earlier, of course, for our patrons, is an edited version of this where you'll definitely see my last game, and maybe you'll see a bit more of me talking through some of the other games, any sort of highlights that came out of this, any other good discussions that came out, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm going to try to make sense of it. So that's going to be my task for tomorrow night, is to edit this stream into something more like a 15 to 20 minute vlog that has some sort of coherency. But for those of you who came into this odd hour, I thank you for watching. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe here. But also, please check out the new channel, Slivey Games Live. Subscribe over there. I'll probably be, of course, all of my unedited live streams will end up on there permanently. And I think eventually I'm going to start shifting some of my live streams to originate on that channel rather than on this one, because I've had not a lot of great success with the live streams on here. They're kind of fun to do. It's an easy way to generate content, but it seems that it sort of clashes with the more edited, produced content that I'm creating. And so I'm trying to kind of separate that out and create the streaming content for the folks that like that, and then focus on more of the tutorials and the demos and things that are really driving people to my channel. So that's all I got for you tonight. I'd like to, again, thank you for dropping by, and take care. Yes, you too. Have a great night. Bye-bye.